pyramids, or the so-called pyramids on Mars. So of course this sparked them to really want to examine that area more. So in 1976 they sent out Viking 1 and 2 to basically go back to their area. It was equipped with more sophisticated, better quality cameras that they sent to the same area to basically take pictures to confirm the pyramids. Now, Viking 1 and 2 also went to an area called Cydonia, where this is where they found the face on Mars, but they also found more pyramids as well in this area. So this is basically what Richard Hoagland is getting into, but it's a lot, surrounding this whole story. So now also north of the Martian pyramid, they found two three-sided pyramids. They also found about 10 miles south of the face, they found a five-sided pyramid that was basically 1.6 miles long and 1 mile wide. They also found a 600-foot spire-shaped object, you might as well say, that was on the edge of a crater. And a spire shape would basically be the shape of like the Eiffel Tower, or the shape of an obelisk, like the Egyptian obelisk or the Washington Monument, which is basically 600 feet tall to be, precise. So they found this stuff on Mars. And the whole argument is it artificial, or is it something that was done naturally with all the destruction, with Mars or what have you? And this is basically what the whole, pictures was trying to, people was trying to show with the pictures, that it's artificial. This is, somebody made this. This is something that's built. It's not a natural occurrence. This is something that is artificial and that some kind of intelligent life built. So basically you had with the mission with Viking, it took about over 60,000 pictures. So the pictures was taken and they basically was stored away, and they didn't tell anybody about them. Nobody talked about the face or about any of the structures or what have you. They was basically, stashed away. So then you had a couple researchers basically come across the pictures, and they started to basically draw up some attention surrounding the pictures, but nothing huge, came about with it. And so Richard Hoagland got a hold of the research that those guys was doing, and he basically took a look at the pictures and automatically connected it with Kemet, with Egypt, saying that, this is like the way it's set up is almost like Kemet. And, this is something we really have to look at and really pay attention to. So he basically put together a team of the top best, computer analysts and video analysts and picture analysts and guys who's like at the top of their field at examining pictures and structures or what have you, to the point where they know if they're looking at a picture of something, if it's artificial or if it's something that's done by nature. So Hoagland and his team basically went full steam with this whole thing and examining and analyzing the pictures and basically comparing it with other photos and just, their research on being able to look at a picture and being able to tell if it's a structure, if it's artificial or natural. So I believe it was 1984 when they basically came to the conclusion that 100% it was artificial. It was an artificial structure that somebody built. This was not something that was, nature or natural. This was artificial. So they basically went full steam in pursuing the truth about, the whole thing, like, what was going on, who built it or what have you. And it seemed like everybody was behind them in their research and what they was trying to do. People wanted to get to the bottom of it. And everybody was with them except for NASA. NASA seemed like they was at every turn, every corner, on their back about the information. They wasn't really with it. They was trying to downplay the photos and say it was something else, or it's just a reflection of light that's giving the illusion of a face and all this and that. And Hoagland actually accused NASA of doctoring some of the pictures when they basically gave out information, because of course they had to do press about this and they would ask questions about the face all during this time. And it seemed like every time they was asked questions, the pictures that they showed seemed to be a little different from the pictures that Hoagland had, which, remember, was the originals. That's something you got to understand. He had the original pictures from those shots that the Viking took. So his pictures was a lot more clear, and everybody knows when you keep making copies, of a picture, the more copies you make, the more the more bad the image becomes. The closer you are to the original, is you get a better quality shot of the photo, and that's something you got to really remember when you do research on this specific subject, because of what we're going to get into later. So everybody seemed to be with Hoagland and his team. You had Congressman Robert A. Rowe, who basically was a congressman, and he basically was on a committee that worked with NASA. So he was really with Hoagland and his team. He was really interested in their information, and he basically said, "I'm going to do whatever I can, give y'all 100% back, and whatever I can do to get to the bottom of this." So it was kind of weird to Hoagland and his team, because they're like, well, this dude works with NASA. He's on a committee that basically works with NASA. So NASA's kind of against it. So it's kind of weird that he's trying to help us out. But then, later out of the blue, he basically resigned his position. But he kept his position on the committee. He resigned his position, I guess, as a congressman, or whatever dealings or involvement he had with NASA on the same level as Hoagland. He resigned that position, but he stayed on the committee with whatever he was doing with NASA. And he basically just completely backed away, just out of the blue, backed away from everything that Hoagland and him was doing, which really made them look at it as like, what's going on? This dude was with it. He was, 100% with the whole thing. And then all of a sudden he backed out. So this basically caused Hoagland and his team to take the whole thing to the United Nations. And in 1992, he had a whole lecture at the United Nations, basically giving his research on the face on Mars and the pyramids. And he was basically connecting the whole structure. He was showing cities on ancient cities on Mars and structures, and trying to parallel it with Egypt, with Kemet. So this was huge. And you got to think about, once the United Nations we're talking about. Even, a picture is a picture. I mean, just think about if you came to United Nations with a picture that looked like something, what you would have to do to actually get a committee put together to listen to what you have to say about these pictures. But they did with Hoagland, which, all the information is not really put out there. But, of course, Hoagland had a little bit of clout. But, it's a lot of information that they must have had, other than the pictures, that gave validity to what Hoagland was saying. So when he gave his lecture, they took it seriously. It was something that was not looked at as, spooky or weird or something like that. They actually was believing what he said, so much so that you had Sierra Leone and you had Grenada basically put the Mars face on stamps. Now understand, NASA already had an orbiter out there orbiting Mars, where they could just basically retake some pictures, more pictures closer or what have you, to basically try to re-examine, what was on Mars, the face and the structures. So it didn't look like, NASA was trying to do such a thing. Like, they basically was just trying to say, well, it's not what you think it is. It's not worth the time. And you understand how this stuff works and da-da-da. But, they was pushing the issue that, we got to go re-examine these places. We got to get better cameras out there. We got to get something on the ground or what have you. And NASA was basically they was backing away. Now understand, as I said, they had an orbiter already out there. So when Hoagland and the team was basically like, you already got an orbiter out there, just go, take the pictures. Just mysteriously, the orbiter was down. They lost contact with it or something like that. Something was wrong with the orbiter. And, they said, oh, no, something wrong with the orbiter. We lost contact. It's basically down. So, that's suspect. Then you had, just out of the blue, a few years later, NASA just basically started, getting on board with the whole thing, saying, okay, well, it's possible, we got to go back. And then NASA just completely changed its tune on the whole situation on Mars with the face and the pyramids and everything like that. Changed its tune. So then you had in 1998, it was in 98 where you had the Mars orbiter was basically coming back around Cydonia where the face was at. And they said, okay, well, we got a higher resolution camera out there with this orbiter, and we're going to take pictures of the area again to see what we see. So then you had pictures been taken. The pictures came back. They wasn't released immediately, which was suspect. But then when the pictures came out again, it looked like this, the face. A lot of you, as I said, know about this already. The face looked completely not like a face. So much so that it's like, how could you ever think it was a face in the first place when you look at the new pictures? Now, obviously, Hoagland and his team was shocked at the pictures because, just look at it. It doesn't look like a face. And it's like, something is wrong. You can obviously, I don't care what nobody said when it comes to these pictures. I mean, when you go and look at the older photos, the original ones that Hogan had, this is one of the things right here. Look at the top of the head on the face. There are dots. You can see these holes there. Now, when you look at the later pictures, where are those holes? Where do you go? They're gone. The holes is not there no more. And one of the reasons why the holes was so, telltale is because people was looking at the face as a hockey mask. People was like, oh yeah, the holes make the face look like a hockey mask, and people made the face with a Jason body and stuff like that. A lot of people were saying it's a hockey mask on Mars. This is what the public was saying about the face when a lot of people was looking at it. Those holes was something that everybody was talking about. Then when you look at the later pictures or the supposedly higher resolution shots, where are those holes? They're gone. Now, there's nothing that you could mistake on the new pictures as being holes. So what is that whole thing about? Which NASA doesn't really address. What it's about. Then when you look at the little carving on the side of the face, it's not what you got to understand. They took angles. It's a couple shots of this face, and in every angle, it looks like a face. But when these new pictures come back, it does not look like a face at all. It look like something defaced the face. So this is what Hoagland was basically saying. He was pushing it like, something is up. NASA either doctored the pictures or they went there and defaced the face or something like that. And it was something that a lot of people who was on board with the whole thing in the beginning basically left it alone, saying, okay, well, we was wrong. And okay, it could have been shadows. But to anybody who really analyzed those photos, like those researchers, they said there's no way that this could be the same thing. Either you change the photos or you deface the face. So now understand, people bought into it. They bought into what NASA was showing with the face, and people actually believed that that's how the face really looked, and it wasn't a face, it was just a mistake. And then, of course, you had the powers that be in their media finally talk about it and put it out to the people, put it out in the press as the face is not a face. The face is just a mistake, it's just a misunderstanding, and you understand if the news talking about it, everybody's going to believe it. So if somebody want to bring it up later and say, no, what about the face on Mars? They're going to say, well, no, the news already clarified that whole thing. It was on the news. The news clarified and said it wasn't a face. It was just a mistake. It's a hoax. So they basically wiped that thing out. Everybody was like, it's not a face and this and that. But then you got to understand, everybody was so focused on the face, they didn't pay attention to the pyramids. They forgot all about that. Everybody was so focused on the face. And they forgot about the 600-foot spire structure that was there. So everybody focused on the face and not realizing that the pictures came back with the pyramids looking the same, with the 600-foot spire structure still casting that shadow that clearly could not be artificial. That clearly cannot be natural, but only artificial for it to be cast in the shadow the way that it did. Now, this is the thing. When they did more research into that area, the original 1976 mission of Viking, they found that the Viking orbiter, when it got to that location where the 600-foot spire structure was at, the orbiter snapped 4 rapid pictures in succession. 4 quick pictures. 4 shots, right? Never again, or none during that trip, all the years it was out there, has it ever took 4 rapid pictures of any other place in succession the way it did when it got over that area with the 600-foot spire obelisk or whatever it is, the structure. So this is something that had to be pre-programmed into the orbiter before it went out there. It's not something they could have done remotely and then get shots off that fast because of the time it takes between them actually sending out a remote signal and then getting to the orbiter. So it was something that they already knew, that they programmed into the orbiter before it even went out. Why? That whole thing was suspect. And then you never again see it again because that is the dagger right there. That is the smoking gun that the researchers was talking about earlier. This one thing, and we wrong about everything else. We could be wrong about the face. We could be wrong about every other pyramid. But that 600-foot spire structure is in no way natural. It's 100% artificial. And the shadow that it casts, there's no way nature can do something like that. I mean, just think about the Washington Monument and something not, it being natural. Like, and then when you just look at the general area of everything around there, where did it come from? If it was natural, what put it there and then left it there and then didn't leave no footprint of what put it there, in its way. So you would think you could see what put it there if something naturally made it or where it came from. For these structures and areas to be the way it is, even with the pyramids, what did it? How could that be natural in a way it's set up? And this is basically what Hoagland and his team was talking about, that anybody with a brain can look at this stuff and see there's no way all of these things could be a coincidence, that all these things is just natural and that none of them are artificial. One, when you just go back and look at the pyramid. When you look at the pyramid and just look down on top of it, then look at the pyramid in Kemet, you can see clearly it looks the same. It looks the same. And we know the pyramid in Kemet is artificial. It was built. There's no way I've seen a lot of pyramids that's natural. Remember in my video when I went out to Pyramid Canyon, I posted that video up there. I was talking about all these pyramid-shaped mountains that's out there in Pyramid Canyon. I just came from there now, like on my way to I'm going to go see the Hoover Dam and everything. So I passed them again, and those you can see the rigid rocks. You can tell, it's natural. It does look like a pyramid, but you can tell some of them is just naturally done, and it's just the way it is.